Good morning, students. We'll continue with chapter 7, that is control and coordination. Last time we talked about the one part of the forebrain, that is cerebrum. This cerebrum, which constitute around 80% of the brain, it controls the voluntary activities and certain centers for the memory, the will, the intelligence, as well as the learning. These centers are also present in the cerebrum part of the forebrain. Now, another structure which is associated with the forebrain, that is hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus. It is present below the cerebrum. ये पूरे का पूरा cerebrum है. Cerebrum के नीचे जो है a small structure is present and this is known as a hypothalamus. This hypothalamus is made up of masses of neurons, and this hypothalamus, it controls the involuntary functions. कौन से involuntary functions? जिसका controlling हमारे will पे नहीं है. Okay, so what are those involuntary functions which are controlled by the hypothalamus? Like hunger, हमें भूख लगती है, we need thirsty, we become thirsty, sweating होती है, we feel sleepy, our blood pressure increases or decreases, the body temperature that remains 37 degrees Celsius, etc. All these activity which are involuntary activities, they are controlled by one part of the forebrain, which is hypothalamus. Now just below the hypothalamus, ये hypothalamus के नीचे a small oval shaped structure is there, which is known as a pituitary gland. So pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus. This pituitary gland is also known as a master endocrine gland. Now what are endocrine glands? हमारी body में 10 endocrine glands हैं. The detail of these 10 endocrine glands we'll be talking in the later part of this chapter, but the function of any endocrine gland is to secrete hormones. हमारी बॉडी में बहुत से हार्मोन्स सिक्रीट होते हैं and these hormones are secreted by certain glands. Those glands which secrete these hormones, they are known as the endocrine gland, and the master endocrine gland is a pituitary gland. So detail of the pituitary gland we'll be talking about in this chapter only, but the later part of this chapter. So this finishes the forebrain, that is cerebrum, hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Next part of the brain is the midbrain, that is a midbrain. Now midbrain is a rhomboidal shaped structure. ये बीच में rhomboidal shaped structure with the tail. You can see this. Okay, this is a midbrain. Now this midbrain consists of actually 4 lobes. Total 4 lobes are there, but these 4 lobes form 2 pairs. So midbrain consists of 2 pair of lobes, that is 4 lobes are there, and the function of the midbrain is that it responds to the visual reflexes and the sound reflexes. अगर हम कुछ देखते हैं या कुछ सुनते हैं तो immediately we move our head towards that side or we move our eyes towards those responses. So the movement of the head and the movement of the eyes in response to the visual reflexes मतलब जिस चीज़ को हम देखते हैं या फिर sound reflexes, they are controlled by the midbrain. Okay, now after that the last part of the brain is the hind brain, that is a hind brain. This hind brain again consists of 3 parts. This is a hind brain, ये hind brain है. This hind brain consists of 3 parts. One is known as the cerebellum. This is a cerebellum. ये जो big lobe like structure है, this is known as a cerebellum. So hind brain consists of one large lobe which is known as a cerebellum. Then there is a small part, oval shaped part is there, which is known as a pons, and below the pons a narrow structure is there. This narrow structure which is known as medulla oblongata. So the pons, medulla oblongata and the cerebellum, these 3 are the parts of hind brain. Now let us talk about these three parts one by one. One is the cerebellum, which I told you it is a large lobe-like structure, like tree-like structure is there, and this cerebellum, it controls the equilibrium and the body posture. Equilibrium, हमारी body when we walk तो हम आगे को गिरते नहीं हैं, when we lift some weight तो हम side में गिरते नहीं हैं. So the body equilibrium and the body posture is maintained by the cerebellum. We walk in a straight line, we turn towards left side, we turn towards right side. When we do the cycling, we can maintain our balance. When we lift something, अगर हम आगे से कुछ उठाते हैं तो हमारी बॉडी पीछे झुक जाती है, अगर बैक से कुछ वेट उठाते हैं तो हमारी बॉडी जो है वो आगे झुक जाती है. सो ऑल दीज बॉडी पोस्चर्स while walking, while cycling, while lifting or doing any activity, our body posture and the body equilibrium, that is maintained by the cerebellum. Okay, now the next part of the hindbrain, that is the pons. Now pons is nothing but only a thick band of thick band of nerve fibers. So nerve fibers का एक band है, and the function of the pons is it is a controlling center, or it controls various activities between the brain and the different parts of the body. So pons coordinate, or it is a coordinating center between the different parts of the body and the brain. So this is the second part of hindbrain. The third part of hindbrain is medulla oblongata. Now this medulla oblongata is very important, which is a posterior most part. सबसे posterior most part is medulla oblongata. It controls the involuntary activities or the involuntary functions of visceral organs. Now ये visceral organs का क्या मतलब है? The organs which are present inside our body, which are very important organs, like heart, kidney, lungs, liver, all these are present inside our body. They are known as the visceral organs. So the function of these visceral organs, the function of heart, the function of kidney, the function of lungs, and the function of the liver, they are controlled by the medulla oblongata. Now controlling of these visceral organs are involuntary function. We cannot control. हम चाहें भी तो हार्ट बीट रोक नहीं सकते, हम चाहें भी तो हम अपना रेस्पिरेशन रोक नहीं सकते. सो ऑल दीज आर इनवॉलेंट्री एक्टिविटीज़. सो इनवॉलेंट्री एक्टिविटीज़ ऑफ वेरियस visceral organs, they are controlled by the cerebellum. Now what are those involuntary functions or involuntary activities? That is heartbeat, breathing, secretion of saliva. If we smell of something, मुंह में हमारे पानी आ जाता है. So secretion of the saliva we cannot control. Vomiting, defecation, that is passing the stool, swallowing of food, peristaltic movements. Peristaltic movements means movements of the intestine. All these movements are involuntary movements. These are not under our will. These are not our will कि हम चाहें तो इनको रोक ले और चाहे तो हम इनको शुरू करें. So these are known as the involuntary functions. In these involuntary functions, they are controlled by the medulla oblongata, which is the posterior most part of the brain. This medulla oblongata is connected with the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is also a part of central nervous system. In my first slide, I must have told you central nervous system have two parts. One is the brain and the second is the spinal cord. Okay, this finishes your central nervous system. Now the thing comes, how does the nervous system cause the action? Nervous system में information तो पहुंच गई, अब information के बाद कैसे वो nervous system work करता है? First, the information is collected by the nervous system. Then nervous system process that information. Processing of information means which type of response should be given to this information, which type of decision is been given to this stimulus. So then comes the making decision. Decision के बाद this decision which is taken by the brain, it has to be controlled to the muscles for action. सो अल्टीमेटली एक्शन कौन करता है, मसल करती है. सो फाइनल जॉब जो है दैट इज डन बाय द मसल. ओके, नाउ हाउ दिस मसल्स डू द फंक्शन. व्हेन द nerve impulses that reaches to the muscle, I told you the nerve impulse, the stimulus or the response always traveled in a form of impulse which is known as a nerve impulse. So when this nerve impulse reaches to the muscles, these muscles के जो cell है they are in a form of fiber. Muscle is made up of many cell and these muscle के जो cell हैं they are not round or they are not oval, they are in a form of fibers. So muscle cells are in a form of elongated structure, that is fiber. Now whenever the nerve impulse reaches to the muscle cells, these muscle cells जो हैं they change their shape. ये muscle cells जो हैं वो अपनी shape को change कर देते हैं and when they change their shape they do the work. That means these muscle fiber they are made up of a special type of protein. Muscle cells जो हैं which are in a form of fiber, so we call them as muscle fibers. So these muscle cell they are made up of a special type of proteins like actin and the myosin. Okay, these proteins are contractile proteins. Contractile proteins का मतलब है the proteins which are present in the muscle they can contract and they can relax. Okay, now because of the presence of contractile protein, when these nerve impulses reaches to the muscle cell, these proteins जो हैं they rearrange themselves. ये जो muscle cell के अंदर proteins हैं which are contractile protein, वो contract कर देती हैं, वो short हो जाती हैं. Okay, so when these muscle cells, the proteins of the muscle cells, they contract, then the muscles show the response. There is contraction of the muscles takes place. So this is how whenever the information reaches to the brain process the information, a decision is made, that decision is conveyed to the muscles and the muscles are made up of certain proteins which are known as the contractile protein. These contractile protein they rearrange themselves as a result they show the response. Now in the 9th standard you must have talked about that there are two type of muscles. One is known as a voluntary muscles and the other is known as an involuntary muscles. Voluntary muscles are the muscles the functioning of which are under our control. हम चाहें तो वॉक कर सकते हैं, हम चाहें तो वॉक नहीं करते. दैट मीन्स लेग की मसल्स जो हैं वो हमारे कंट्रोल में है. सिमिलरली अगर हम हाथ हिलाना चाहें तो हिलाते हैं, अगर हम नेक हिलाना चाहें तो हिलाते हैं. सो ऑल दीज मसल्स आर वॉलेंट्री मसल्स. द इनवॉलेंट्री मसल लाइक हार्ट is a muscular structure. You cannot control the functioning of the muscles of the heart. So these are the involuntary muscles, right? So with this the nervous system gets completed. Now I must have told you in the first slide that there are three type of nervous system. Nervous system consists of three parts. Central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. We talked about the brain and the spinal cord. Then second type of a nervous system is peripheral nervous system, which consists of the nerves which comes out from the brain and the spinal cord. Now this is a brain, and this is a spinal cord. Spinal cord, brain is well protected in a cranium. Similarly spinal cord जो है वो एंटीरियर पार्ट ऑफ द बॉडी से लेके पोस्टीरियर पार्ट ऑफ द बॉडी तक एक्सटेंड है. एंड दिस स्पाइनल कॉर्ड इज ऑल्सो वेल प्रोटेक्टेड इन द वर्टिब्रल कॉलम. तुम्हारी बैक साइड पे जो वर्टिब्रल कॉलम है, ओके, उसके अंदर स्पाइनल कॉर्ड इज वेल प्रोटेक्टेड. नाउ you can see certain nerves arise from the brain, like this is a nerve arise from the brain, this again is a nerve which is arising from the brain. ये भी nerve जो है वो brain से arise हो रही है, ये भी एक nerve है जो brain से arise हो रही है. So the nerves which arise from the brain, they are known as the cranial nerves. They are known as the cranial nerves. Like ये brain से arise होके ये lungs में भी जा रही है, heart में भी जा रही है, liver में भी जा रही है, intestine में भी जा रही है, और ऊपर जो है these nerves जो हैं cranial nerves, they are going to the eyes, etc., etc. So the nerves which originate from the brain, they are known as the cranial nerves. Human के अंदर 12 cranial nerves are there, 12 cranial nerves हैं. Similarly you can see that this is a spinal cord and nerves are arising from the spinal cord. Like ये spinal cord में से ये nerve arise हो रही है, और ये nerves जो हैं ये they are going to various parts of the body. So the nerves which arise from the spinal cord, ये वाली nerves जो इस side पे हैं, they are arising from the spinal cord. This spinal cord से जो nerve arise होती हैं, they are known as the spinal nerves. They are known as the spinal nerves. So the peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves only, the nerves which arise from the brain, that is cranial nerves, and the nerves which arise from the spinal cord. Now 31 pair of spinal nerves arise from the spinal cord. Spinal cord में से 31 pair of the spinal nerves arise. Okay, this is regarding the peripheral nervous system. The third type of nervous system I must have told you is the autonomous nervous system. Autonomous nervous system consists of sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The detail of this sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system is not in your course. So you will be talking the detail of sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and the higher classes. Okay, with this the nervous system, human nervous system get finished. Next time I'll be talking about coordination in plants कि plants के अंदर coordination कैसे होता है. Thank you students.